Does the battery on your F-150 repeatedly and intermittently go dead? Well, you've tested your battery and it tests good. Well, if so, then this little switch could be your problem. But how can you tell? Well, here's what to look for. With the key on and your foot on the brake so that you can change your shifter, move your shifter through the different positions and notice how each one turns red as you get to it. And then when you're done, you shift all the way back into park, and park should turn red. Now watch this. If park does not turn red, or if it flickers, then this is your problem. Now that you know what the problem could be, where do you go to look for it? You know, when you want to know how something works or where to look, wouldn't it be nice to talk to the people who actually design the system? And in this case, it would be the electrical engineers. After all, they designed all this stuff in the first place. Well, the good news is you can, but they don't speak English, German, or Japanese. They speak electrical, so we need to speak their language, not ours. Fortunately, we have the ability to hear what they have to say right in our own shop, and it's called the electrical diagram. Once you learn how they talk electrical, you'll get the answers you want, and oftentimes you get answers to questions you didn't even know to ask. So instead of wondering or guessing, learn how to read an electrical diagram. And if you want a good place to start, I have a whole series on just that on my website, and it's free. Check it out. So let's read this diagram. Now this shift indicator that we're talking about is located in the instrument panel, right? When you check the service info, you're going to find several different diagrams because the instrument panel displays several different things. So this particular diagram shows what we need for this particular complaint, which is the dash panel light stays on, it doesn't turn red, and the battery goes dead. The first diagram shows what is called the park detect in the instrument panel cluster, and it's controlled by the BCM. In this vehicle we have a floor shifter, so we can eliminate this upper portion of the diagram because it refers to the column shifter. And that means that the park detect only has one input, which comes from a simple switch inside the floor shifter. So we need to look at the floor shifter diagram. In this diagram we have the floor shifter, and notice that it is a solid box, which means it is a complete unit and all the electrical points are identified, and this is what it looks like. We also have the instrument panel cluster. It too is a dotted box inside the solid box, and the solid box means that it is a complete unit, and the dotted box inside that solid box means that there are more items inside the instrument panel cluster than just the park detect, but the park detect is definitely inside it as well. We have the ignition switch, the same arrangement, a complete unit with the load inside it. And finally the BCM, also a complete unit with multiple items inside. Now let's focus on the park detect that is inside the floor shifter. It is a simple two-position switch, normally at rest in the range position. Now range meaning every other position other than park. The switch has two paths or positions and allows ground to pass right through it. Here's the ground, and it passes through the switch up to the load, which is inside the ignition switch. And you have power, which you'll notice is hot at all times. Now we know that any load that has power and ground will have a voltage drop. And keep this in mind, it is hot at all times, so the voltage drop will be at all times. Now with the engine running, the charging system replaces that voltage loss. But with the engine off, the battery will have a continual voltage loss because there's nothing there to replace that loss. So when we shift into park, the switch detects that and changes the position. Notice the switch redirects the ground to the instrument panel. Remember, it's a two-position switch, not an open-close switch. So it doesn't want to open the circuit, it wants to send the ground somewhere else, and that's the instrument panel. This movement now opens the path to the BCM, so there will be no more voltage drop or battery drain. Instead, the shift indicator has the ground at the park position, so the red P can now light up and signal the park detect. This signals the BCM to go into its pre-programmed park strategy or shutdown. So again, if your shift indicator is not red, this circuit is still powered up and you will have a battery drain. So this is a good example of how being able to read the diagram or talk to the engineers who design the system has told us how the system works and where to look for the parts involved. So instead of wondering, guessing, or wasting time, learn how to read an electrical diagram. And remember, there's a good place to start. I have a whole series on that on my website. It's free. Check it out.